You guys want to get some coffee or something?
Can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Even little kids in Mexico drink coffee.
Well, I'm not a little kid in Mexico, okay?
That is the best coffee I've ever tasted.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
You want a cup of coffee?
No coffee.
Coffee drinker, huh?
Maybe we could grab some coffee?
Coffee, 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 coffee.
How you doing, fellas?
Okay.
That's not decaf, is it?
Viennese cinnamon.
Yep, it is Wednesday morning, and you're welcome to the show that ends when I run out of my coffee. It's UFO Wednesday. You know, one of the things I like about that clip, I don't know if people catch it, that one alien, when he spills the coffee, goes, oh, shit.
Yeah.
It always makes me giggle when that fucking thing goes, oh, shit. Hey, Kay. Viennese cinnamon. It is UFO Wednesday. Of course, our guest of honor is Don Ecker, who is here from California. How he's making it out there, I don't know, because it is absolutely the shithole of the nation right now. How's things going out there?
Hot. Very, very hot.
Man, oh
First time in 20 odd years that I've been having to run my AC every day. Every day.
El
It's
Nino,
been
man.
yesterday 106, day before 104. I mean, the last week it's been triple digits. It's been beastly. But that's enough whining and whinging on my part.
That's all stuff for here in Texas.
Yeah, so yeah, you're down there in the Southland. Martin Acosta Santana is here. Of course, he is the right side of my brain, the Logic Center. He runs the chat for me. And
hey, Martin.
My good friend Christopher Moonlight Productions, or Chris as I call him, is here from Texas. And then, of course, my personal friend from Springfield, Missouri, but lives in Sedalia now. One of the other close friends I met through VisionCon, and a mutual friend with Keith. And in fact, you want to call Keith, John, because he's not here. He's busy doing black guy stuff or sleeping. God only knows, because he works all night. I tell people that guy works all night and then comes on the show, and that's why if he's not talking, he'll start falling asleep. You'll see him. He's sitting there. He's like energized, hands in camera. The minute he stops talking, he's like, and it was a game we play every once in a while. If you catch Keith sleeping, you win a prize. You don't get anything. It's just, I say there's a prize. I'm like that knockoff version of Crackerjacks. It doesn't have any prizes in it. What do they call that? Fiddle faddle. It's more delicious. But still, Crackerjacks, you get toys in it. We're going to be talking about something this morning I find very exciting. It looks like people are trickling in about the way my prostate works at 1 o'clock in the morning. And they're trickling in. Get it? I saw the look on your face, Chris. The joke was the trickling part. I'm going to let that one sink in.
Or absorb.
Or absorb. My coffee is yummy this morning. Let's see who is in the chat. We got a lot of comments already. Goodness gracious. Of course, Das Wolfen, John, who is also on the show. Monkey Jeebus is here. Thank you. Come again. Lord Thoth is here. Hell, Lord Thoth. Let's see. Of course, Martin is in there, and he is here. D-Bud Martin, good morning, my friend. How are you? Tin Man is here. Good morning. I've seen you comment a lot on the shows, Tim, but this is the first time I've seen you in over a week. So it's good to see you, my friend. Pat S. is here, our producer. Great guy. very good friend. I love that man. Darius Munchausen is here. Darius is the one Munchausen that's guaranteed not to cause you instant death. Let's see. Who else? Peter Vickman Fanside is here. Good morning, my dear lady.
Penny is here.
Penny is here. Good morning, Penny. Good morning. And Dragon Ruse is here. We got 2 dragons in the house. It's a house of dragons. Dr. Dragon and Dragon Ruse. Good morning. Let's see. I'm scrolling down. Oh, Love of My Life is here. Enema. Alex Moore. Good morning, Alex Moore. Don't Call Me Wave is here. Good morning. Decepticons Cave of Villains is here. We got about half the crew. About half the crew is here. Looking forward to this show because I did not put any credence to that story, Don. I did not. And the more I look at the stuff that you've got, and I listen to that whole radio program, that first 45 minutes with you, and I got to tell you, even with my artistic eye, I can't see shit. But I trust you so much that I know it's there. The one thing I do see is the tread one. And that is weird because that's not normal for it to come out of a crater. It's in a crater and it came up and then out. That makes no sense.
Sure it does.
Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense if you think it's a rock.
Look, NASA. You know what NASA stands for?
Well, I
Need
know
another
what
7
it
astronauts
stands for, but
Never a
Never
straight answer.
Never a straight
Okay.
answer.
All right. That's what they said. A rock that came. Give me a break. Look, I was first really introduced to the idea that there was something going on the moon back in the 60s. Okay.
Yeah.
Even then, NASA admitted that they saw strange lights on the moon, something they called domes, lit domes, that they would watch for a week, maybe 2 weeks. This is back when astronomers were still publicly talking about moon observation. Why? Because of the Apollo program. We had not yet gotten there. And then these domes would disappear. They would just vanish. And a short time later, they would show up on a different aspect of the moon. Now, this is on the side facing us, what we could actually see. Now, Gerry, what does that tell you?
It's saying that there's something there, intelligent, because it's there and then it's missing.
Okay, so yeah, then after Apollo, a guy by the name of George Leonard, who was a science writer, okay, had some buddies, some science buddies in NASA that had been involved with the Apollo program. They provided Leonard with photographs. They had tens of thousands of photographs after all those Apollo missions that either got to the moon or landed on the moon. And those photographs, in many of them, showed what could only be artificial constructs. Now, notice, I'm not saying alien. I'm saying artificial, something. He ended up writing a book that came out in '76 called Somebody Else Is on the Moon. You heard me mention that to Bell, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to have to talk about that show too.
Yeah, and if you want me to, I will play audio from it and we can pause it whenever you want and you can comment on what was just being talked about.
Well, the part that I like, I don't want to get into that yet. Okay. But all right, that's good. So anyway, here we are. This book comes out Somebody Else is on the Moon. And that book, have any of you ever heard about it before? Any of you on the panel? No. Well, I've got an old, beaten up paperback copy, I hope. This is some of my, yeah, here we go. This book, let me get it there. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Somebody Else is on the Moon, George Leonard. This book, today in the annals of research and people that have been investigating these oddities, is legendary, all right? If you can even find this, somebody go up to Amazon and check and see if they have any of these copies available. Even a paperback I have seen on Amazon before going for close to $100. Okay, the hardbound, hundreds of dollars, because there are photographs in there, and some of those photographs you looked at yesterday, Gary, were actually photographs that I got. Well, I'll tell you that story, the source that I got those photographs from. But anyway, so here we are. This book comes out. It almost immediately disappears. But enough people had seen it that they began doing some investigation about it. Now, why did that book disappear?
There you go, Don.
How much?
Audiobook is free for me, but $71 for hardcover, $24 for paperback, and $45 for the mass market paperback.
Yeah, well, they've come down a little bit.
It's still pricey, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you can get it.
So here Leonard discovered these anomalies that everybody tried to deny. Now, I had an incident back in 1995 after I got put on the track. I began investigating lunar anomalies about 1991-92. And I carried on for well over 20 years, okay? In 2014, after years of trying, I knew a producer that I had been trying to get to do a show, a television show, on this topic, okay? You see, the powers that be don't give a damn about people sitting in a farm in Iowa that see a UFO. Now, I'm talking about in the past, not the last few years, because things have dramatically changed. But, you know, a cop sees a flying saucer, okay. A housewife sees a flying saucer, a trucker, no big deal. But what happens if an astronomer or somebody else sees something like this? And when you're talking about the moon, everybody knows there's nothing on the moon, right? Everybody knows. Oh my God, the moon. Nah, we'd know about it. No, we wouldn't. That's the rub. We wouldn't know. So anyway, here we are with this book, and I met a guy by the name of Vito Sakari. Now, Vito was a petrochemical engineer down in Houston. And Houston had a very active UFO organization that was a part of MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. And when his story came out, which I'm going to tell you about right now, they got interested. But like most amateurs, Gary, okay, I'm going to sound a little snobby now. Most amateurs end up fucking the pooch, okay, like these guys did.
Yeah.
Vito was working for a petrochemical company who had a business relationship with a petrochemical company down in Venezuela before Venezuela went all commie, okay? And this was an American petrochemical company. And Vito's company was doing work for them, and they sent an engineer up to liaise on whatever it was they were doing at the time. Now, this was back in 1978, 1979. Vito and that guy had been communicating then. We didn't have an internet, okay? We didn't have anything like that, didn't have cell phones. They had been communicating over teletype and fax. That was the means of communication then. So this guy, his name was Lester House. Lester gets up there. Now they had been communicating for a couple of years, so they were friends right off the bat. And when they got together, Lester reached into his back pocket and pulled George Leonard's book out. And he said, look, he said, I had a dual purpose for coming up here. Number one, of course, was for the company. But number two, this is Houston. I want to go over to NASA and I want to see their moon photographs. Now, I'll tell you why I want to do it. He handed Vito the book. He said, take this home tonight and read it. Or read as much of it as you can, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. So the next day, Vito comes in and he says, okay, that was kind of weird. And Lester said, now do you know why I want to go over to NASA? And Vito said, well, let me talk to my people. And they were very interested in keeping a very good relationship with Lester's company. So they gave Vito laissez-faire. Do what you got to do. He wants to go over to NASA. Take him over to NASA. You know, take care of him. So they go over to NASA and they said, hey, guys, we'd like to see our moon photos. Well, what photos did they want to see? Well, George Leonard had a number of them in there, including a couple I sent you, which showed lunar craters, Gerry, with excavation on the rim. You saw those, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to start showing? Which one you want me to show first? C8?
Oh, no, not C8.
Lunar 6. I'll start with 3. Here's 3.
Okay, can you blow it up a little bit?
That's as big as we get it here. I can blow it up on my Photoshop and upload a new image of it. Yes. How big do you want it? Just
where the circles are, where you can see some of what apparently was excavation on those rims.
Roger that. I'll enlarge it here, but I'll pull it down. You go ahead and start talking, and I'll add it back in a minute.
So that's what they wanted to see, to show that there was some type of extracurricular activity happening on the moon. Now, remember, this is after we went to the moon. Now, NASA knew something was up with the first Apollo project. Apollo 10, Apollo 11. 11 was the first one that landed. We all know what happened to Apollo 13. Then there was Apollo 14 and so on until the last one in December of 72. That was Apollo 17. Do you know that when those astronauts went up and landed on the moon, that NASA armed them?
I did know about that because I've seen the photos. Because initially, even all the way back during the initial going into space missions, some of those astronauts were armed because of things they saw. And also the possibility of crash landing in the wrong place. Well,
our guys were all crash landing into the ocean. Okay. Yeah. That's what NASA, when I confronted NASA about that back when I was doing my very first radio program on CRN called UFOs Tonight, I was told that, and I got to tell you that they were armed, and I didn't believe it. Okay, they were armed? What the hell for? Well, guess what? I called them up. I called up and I spoke to their public relations guy. And I told him who I was. And I said, I understand that the astronauts carried weapons with them to the moon. And he tried to talk around it. And I said, well, you know, hey, it's simple. Were they armed? Well, yeah. They were? Why? Well, you know, if coming back, they landed in the wrong place, like in a jungle or something, you know, we wanted them to be able to protect
with
themselves.
the Gemini, it was the Gemini missions where they started arming them because of the fear that if they crash landed in the wrong spot. So, but with the Apollo missions,
all the missions, Gemini, all of them were in the ocean. All of them.
I know that. What I'm saying is it was a different reason with Apollo than what they did with Gemini, because they knew they wouldn't crash land anywhere else.
Somebody asked in the chat, what were they armed with? Because I'm curious.
45. It was 45.
45 ACP, automatic.
The
Was it something that they expected? I mean, they wouldn't be able to fire that in a vacuum because you need.
Why not?
You can.
You can. Don't you need air to ignite the gunpowder?
No.
There's already air in the casing itself. No, you can discharge a weapon in space. The thing about it is, it's also going to push you backwards, like it's a rocket. And
well,
so
if you're in 0G, but on the moon, you wouldn't.
It's a chemical reaction. The primer is the igniter. Okay, it's struck by the firing pin that explodes, in effect, then causing the propellant, the gunpowder, to turn into a gas, which pushes the projectile out of the barrel. So sure, you can
and air is only
all day long.
All air does is it makes the whatever is flammable more flammable. But here you go. Here's that zoom in there.
Oh, nice. Just one quick question though: were the triggers, were they something that you'd be able to pull with their massive gloves on? Were the guns altered at all?
I don't know. I don't know. But however it was, they had them and they could use them if necessary.
Very interesting. Yeah.
So
I'd known that, but I've never really given any thought.
Here's the crater, Don.
Yeah. Okay. Now that's still not, well, my eyes are not as good as they used to be, but you zoom in on that, and you can with your computer with the magnifying effect, you'll see that there's excavations or something digging away at that crater wall. And the other thing that Leonard pointed out in his book, Somebody Else is on the Moon, are a number of things, and you can see them in several of those photos, called X drones, an X appearing thing, okay, that is on and around the crater. Did you see any of those, Gary?
Say that again. I'm sorry. Just responded to somebody in the chat.
X's.
In this photo?
Well, I can't tell in this photo. Yeah. I can't. Let me look here real quick. Yeah, if you look down on that bottom circle at 6 o'clock, you'll see 3 arrows there. You would really have to zoom in more. But they're pointing at things, and I think this is one of the photographs. I think this is one of the photographs where you can see at least one of those.
Well, I can definitely see that those are not natural grooves. These are not natural grooves. There's also one to the right that is not a natural groove you'd find on a crater.
Right.
It's clear that something's.
Now you got another crater photo, don't you?
Yeah, I've got this one.
Yeah, there, that one. Zoom in on that one, pal.
Okay, it'll take me a second because I have to use Photoshop and then save it and then upload it. Copy.
In the first picture, they almost look like mud wasps when they kind of make their nests and then burrow a hole into it.
Yeah. Good description. By the way, to end the discussion, I said already that there is already oxygen occurring within rounds. And all oxygen is an exciter. It's not necessary for the explosion. It's necessary to excite the explosion.
And my question was asked out of my ignorance, not because I was trying to do any kind of gotcha.
Well, they're discussing it in the chat, and Lord Thoth made a point, which a lot of modern ammunition has an oxidizer in the ammo. But in the process of loading ammo in a bullet in the shell, there's oxygen already in there. There's oxygen in it. No matter how tightly packed you think it is, there's still oxygen in it. And so let me load this up, flatten. And that one is, what picture is that? What picture is that?
And if I were going to the moon, a 1911 A1 would definitely be what I'd want to carry with me.
Oh, heck yeah. It was designed to do the one thing that movies like to show bullets doing, knock things backward or spin them. And
John, while we're waiting on Gary's
I'm
enhancement,
uploading it now. I'm uploading it now.
There are a lot of stories out here of UFOs and people I know who have had family in the military. Do you think that NASA being in my neck of the woods is kind of attracting all of that?
Well, first of all, I want to go back to something I said when Don wasn't here, and I need to go over it because he's here, is that the separation of the Air Force from the Army is suspicious because it took place right after Roswell. They wanted total control over that. Also, the building of the CIA from the former OSS was also right after Roswell. And between the two of them, they controlled the narrative on UFO.
You're forgetting the most important thing, Gerry.
Yes.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
The United States Army Air Force separated. The Air Force became its own separate entity. Now, this was all immediately following the time period between June 24th, 1947 and July 4th, 1947.
Yep.
And what did those two dates signify? June 24th is when Kenneth Arnold, a civilian pilot, was flying over near the Cascade Mountain Range, out of Idaho, out of Boise, and he encountered 9 flying objects skipping through the mountain range near Mount Rainier, traveling in excess of 1,200 miles an hour, he estimated. Now, he was an experienced pilot.
Yep.
He was able to time the time that it took these things, whatever and they weren't incidentally flying saucers. They were not shaped round. They actually looked more, because I have somewhere in my extensive files, I have an actual photograph that I got from a guy who got it from the Air Technical Center, which showed one of these things. It looks more like a boot heel, if you know what I'm talking about. A boot heel, not a disc. Now, the whole flying saucer thing came about when Arnold said they were skipping around and flying like if you were to take a saucer and throw it over a body of water and it would hit the water and flip up, and that action. So the term was coined flying saucer, even though the first objects cited were not actual discs. Now, that was June 24th. July 4th, right in and around that time frame, is when the Roswell crash was discovered.
Yep.
guy by the name of Mac Brazel, who was a rancher out there in New Mexico, was taking a herd, or no, I guess not, herd is not the right word, flock, a flock of sheep, okay, until they came to this area where something had obviously crashed into the ground, and there was a debris field. Now, this is also something that they've tried to hide with the balloon explanation. A debris field that he said at the time was about 3/4 of a mile of debris.
Yeah, there's no way a weather balloon would do that.
No.
No way.
So anyway, so immediately upon that happening, the military did their damnedest to immediately hush the whole thing up, even though initially a radio broadcast and a newspaper story was released that the Army Air Force had captured a flying disc, okay? And then the next day, I guess it was two-star General Roger Ramey, okay, issued a blanket press report that no, we didn't. It was simply the debris from a weather balloon. That was the beginning of the cover-up. Now, immediately following that, around what is today my birthday, July 26th, the Central Intelligence Agency was created. The Air Force became its own separate service entity. And the third thing, Gary, that I mentioned, that had never been done before, not even at the height of World War II during the Manhattan Project, where we were developing the atomic bomb. Something called the National Security Act was signed into law. Now, the implications of the National Security Act, if you're not totally familiar with it, are chilling. Okay, now.
Well, I've read it. Yes, it is.
They can do, if they deem it in the national security interest, anything up to and including premeditated murder. If they consider you a threat to the national security of the United States of America, the right guy can put the finger on you, and the next thing you know, you're dead. Now, think about that.
Yeah. And once again, this all these things occurred right after Roswell. Kenneth Arnold, well, there was actually one before even Kenneth Arnold. I forget what that one's called. But then Kenneth Arnold was the big one. And then came Roswell. And the whole narrative around Roswell being a balloon was so fucking ridiculous. And it was so nice that when In Search Of did their interview with, I forget his name, the officer who found the debris.
At the time, Major Jesse Marcel.
Jesse Marcel. His interview, if you ever go look it up on YouTube, his interview is chilling because he recants everything he was ordered to say at that photo op. And he says that I was forced to do that by, what's his name? The
Ramey.
Yeah, Ramey. Because Ramey is very cozy with the CIA, what became the CIA and the OSS, counterintelligence. This guy was bought and sold military. That means that his belief in protecting civilian life was gone. His belief was.
Wait a minute. Let's, to be perfectly equal and fair, okay, we are looking at this fact from closing in on 80 years ago, okay? What the hell had just happened? We had just finished the most expensive, in terms of life and money, national treasure, the most expensive war in all of history. Gentlemen, in 1941, before Pearl Harbor in December, my dad, who came from basically a dirt poor family, okay? He had 5 sisters, 1 brother, and it was just the aftermath of the Great Depression, and they were short on money. My granddad was scrambling all the time to make some bucks to feed the kids. My dad lied about his age, joined the Pennsylvania State Guard, which today would be the National Guard.
Right.
And told them he was 18. He was only 16. He was in an actual, no kidding, horse and saddle and boot company of
Cavalry. That's
cavalry.
right.
Cavalry. Horses. Okay, in the age of strategic bombers, machine guns, cannons, tanks, you name it, and all that stuff he was in a freaking cavalry outfit. Within 4 years, gentlemen, we went from cavalry to atomic bombs and jet aircraft. Think about that. Think about that technological leap. And the Nazi Germans, one of the most insidious enemies this nation ever faced, the Imperial Japanese, the most brutal bastards on the planet, and we kicked the hell out of them in 4 years. Now, of course, we had help. We had the Russians. We had the Soviet Union. We had the Brits. Okay, we had the Free French. But when you think about it, in many ways, it's a miracle. Hell, my war, Vietnam, I was wounded twice in that goddamn war. You know how long it lasted? And we still ended up losing 15 years. Why? Because we didn't have the will to win and end it, okay? Hadn't had that will since Korea. The Korean War, another war that we refused to win. Why? Political expediency. And that's the crap we're dealing with today. We don't have a national will, and it's going to end up biting us. You wait. But we're not talking about that.
Well, we saw that back in the 2000s, too, when Bush told us to go back to just living our lives, nothing to see here, go spend money. And we didn't get into a war footing, which we should have. But I want to go back because I have these photos for you now.
But what my point was, okay, don't let me get sidetracked. Those senior officers in the aftermath of Roswell
right,
had no clue what they were dealing with. If these things were from another star system, and even back in those days, nobody had a clue about other possible explanations like interdimensional travel between various universes, which is not as crazy as it might at first blush sound, okay? They didn't know what they were dealing with. Were these beings coming here to attack us? And if they did, God help us, we wouldn't have stood a chance. So they didn't know. And they were afraid because at that time, it would have rung true, the fear and panic of the American public, okay? There were people then, just like there are today, although thankfully not nearly as many, that saw this as a possible demonic invasion. Demons, Lucifer, Satan.
Well,
okay?
I know that many in the Air Force believe that.
Yeah.
That actually brings up a question that I have, and forgive me because I know you want to get back to the moon photos. My phone's going to run out of power soon, but a friend of mine who lives here, her father was I believe a general, and she said, he's dead now, but she said when he used to come home, he used to tell stories about working with UFOs. He said he wasn't supposed to say it, but he talked about like metal that they could crumple and would reform. And one of the things that she said that was very interesting to me and still gives me chills to think about is there were several occasions after he died that doppelgangers would show up to meet members of family Like she was supposed to meet someone at a coffee shop, and when she arrived, she was late.
For what purpose?
I don't remember. I think, but essentially, when she met the person, the family member she's supposed to meet, they're like, "What just happened? What was that?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You just got up and walked out on me, and now you're back." And she's like, "I haven't been here." And they confirmed, the people at the coffee shop said, "No, we saw you sitting at a table with her. She hadn't been there." This person had a 20-minute conversation with who he or she, I can't remember, thought was her before she ever arrived. And then there was another occasion where another family member arrived at their house and just stood out there for about 5 minutes and then drove off again, and then arrived again. And they said, "Why did you go and come back?" And they said, "What do you mean? I just got here." She has a lot of strange stories, but when you mention kind of interdimensional, those were the first stories that kind of came to mind. So I was wondering, just because you've said that, if you've heard anything like that, or if you think there's any authenticity to that kind of story.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've heard other stories. As a matter of fact, a deceased friend of mine that you may be familiar with, John Keel.
Oh yeah.
A noted 410 writer, researcher, investigator. The guy that basically wrote and investigated the West Virginia Mothman case encountered a lot of stuff like that. Weird, yes, weird, paranormal, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So, Chris, if you got to go, just don't worry about dropping out. I'm glad you were here today.
Nice meeting you, Chris.
Nice
and
meeting you.
by the way, Keith is here. Keith.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, how's it going?
Thank you, guys. I do got to take off. But
Okay.
Really great talk. You guys have a great time. Thank you. Nice to meet you. And
Take care, Chris.
Everyone in the chat, have a good one.
You too,
All right,
Chris.
I'm going to go back to the photos now. I'm going to start with Lunar Image 3. And there it is, enlarged. Now I'll drop the brand banner there so we can see the photo better. That's as zoomed in as I can get it. And let me remove the other graphic too. Boom, it's gone. So there you go. If you look to the left,
there is something there okay, within the circle, the top arrow pointing down, there are 3 arrows in that segment of the photograph. You'll see something that looks like a platform there with, I believe, and I'd have to look at my original because, you lose some resolution on the computer, like a pad or a landing pad or something there. Do you see that, Gerry?
Yeah, I see it. It looks like an X shape with dots.
Yeah. Now you got to remember this is taken from altitude. So these were taken from spacecraft in orbit.
Yeah, you can see little indentations all over the place inside those circles.
Now, why don't you put up the one that you had referenced earlier that I sent you?
Oh, this one.
Rolling object.
This is part 1. Let me show the second one. Up here is something you were pointing at with a long trail that curves.
Right.
And then comes the other one from the same photo with what looks like it almost looks like footsteps more than anything.
A tank tread. I always said a tank tread.
It looks really odd because that is not what there are blank spots on it. There are blank spots there in between, which is what makes it look like a tread. And it's doing a movement that a rock wouldn't do. It's coming out of a raised wall, which is what's weird.
And if you look at that object the arrow is pointing at, and I have, blow it up, okay, you'll see what appear to be two protrusions going through this thing that it's rolling on. Like an axle, I guess, would be the closest analogy I could put to it. But you'll see two protrusions on either side of that rolling thing, okay?
By the way, Don, if you don't know this, are you on your PC right now?
Yeah.
Okay, mouse over the screen, and on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a broken square shape. If you click that, it enlarges on your screen.
Yeah, just did.
Okay, there you go. Anybody can do that with watching on YouTube. Just enlarge your screen. You can see a better image of this, so it becomes really big.
Freaky,
clearly,
huh?
That doesn't even look like a rock.
Well, it's not a rock.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're trying to say it's a rock. NASA said it's a rock. That is not a rock. It is obviously not a rock. It has got right angles in it, and right angles don't occur in nature. That is an unnatural object. That's fascinating. Now, this one. Now, what were you saying about this one? Because you do have an arrow on it.
Well, it's another example. You can also follow behind that, running back to where apparently this thing ran out of a crater.
Yeah, out of a crater. It's just so bizarre. That is so weird. Back to this one again. That's so fucking crazy.
Wow.
So the bottom line is, and I don't know about you.
And here's the original photo so you guys can see the entire thing.
Yeah, it kind of upsets me. We've been suffering from the mushroom syndrome, where they keep us in the dark and they feed us copious amounts of bullshit.
Well, that's what's led to this detachment people have with any kind of threat from intelligent life that exists outside of our Earth. That's not natural to our Earth. They just like, oh, okay, go on about your life. We're so well trained that they just keep going at it. Where guys like us are like, you don't fucking understand. We have no control over this. These beings are so advanced.
Well, people's brains have a self-defense mechanism, Gerry. If it's something that consciously and subconsciously they don't want to deal with, they blank it out. You know, over the years that I was involved in this research, I couldn't begin to give you a number of how many people I've talked to, I've interviewed, I've gone out, researched cases, listened to them, and I couldn't, once again, tell you how many times people would tell me, oh my God, oh yeah, I just remembered that. I can't understand. How could I forget that? Well, the brain will blank out uncomfortable information. I'm sure you're familiar with that phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting some really good comments here. I want to read some of these for you because Glenn Fleming in particular has made some interesting statements. First, he starts with Don, talk about Fred Lee Chrisman. Do you know who he's talking about? Because I don't know that.
Yeah.
Name.
Yeah.
He follows that up with, I wish the internet was around when I published my magazine Undercover back in the early 90s. I'd be interviewing Don. And then he continues to say, Englishman Frank Whittle had jet tech in the early 30s. And I remember reading about that. Fascinating.
One of the first people to basically work on a conceivable jet engine. Okay, the British RAF practically could have had a jet before the German Me-262 if they would have sunk the money into it. And,
that's the problem is skunk works weren't treated like they were by the 50s. The 50s, It became essential. During World War II, the British were putting money more into their working weapons, less on the planned tech or untested tech.
Well, the Brits were up against the wall too.
Yeah.
Okay. The Krauts had them. They were. People don't realize how close the British Empire was to totally falling apart. Okay, if Hitler could have knocked the RAF out of the sky, there's no doubt in my military mind they would have invaded Great Britain.
Yep. And Winston Churchill knew it, and for the second time in modern history, they needed America to come into the war because we at that time we knew how to kick people's ass. But once the media sank its hooks into the military started pulling back a little bit, because as bad as Dresden was, it was necessary, and we know that. Tecumseh Sherman taught us that sometimes you got to burn down Georgia to get somebody's attention to stop funding their military. Am I not right, Don?
You're totally right. And I've recently, and I'm talking about the last several months, I've been doing, for my own purposes, I've been doing research into the last 6-8 months of the end of World War II with the Japanese. Okay. The Germans, for all intents and purposes, were being crushed by the Soviet Union from the east and the Allied front from the west. All right. It was still gory, bloody, lethal. Okay. But we knew the Germans were finished. The Japanese, however, that was a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I just talked about that the other day because people don't understand why the atomic bomb was necessary for both of them. Was because they were stockpiling in the mountains, and they had actually built caves to launch airplanes to continue the war effort in Japan.
Well, they had a cult of emperor worship.
Hirohito, yep. They absolutely believed he was a god. They were going to continue the war effort. And when that intelligence got back to Truman through MacArthur, Eisenhower was right in there with them. They all agreed this is necessary. This has to be done. But Harry Truman is the one who took all responsibility and signed off on it.
We had our first taste. We had our first taste of Japan in Guadalcanal. Okay.
Yeah.
It took us 6-8 months, but we knocked the hell out of them. But then things got serious. Tarawa, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, for God's sake, and the coup de grace was Okinawa. Those people would fight to the last bullet and then attack you with a damn bamboo spear or a knife. They refused to surrender because to them, there was nothing in the world more dishonorable than surrendering. You not only shamed yourself, community you came from, you shamed Japan, and most importantly, you shamed the emperor. So, as I used to say, death is as light as a cherry blossom. They gladly went to their death. Now, I can't fathom that, but every time those guys fought to the last round and the last bayonet, we lost lives. And they came to the conclusion that if we had to invade the home islands of Japan, we could lose as much as 1 million Allied troops. Now think about that.
Yeah, exactly. No, and this is the thing that MacArthur was trying to explain, and Truman understood what he was saying. And Eisenhower's right in there with him, saying that you don't understand. You're talking about the loss of millions of lives, which was including the Japanese and any allies working with us that would die.
Or it would have been pure genocide with the Japanese people. Okay? I knew guys growing up. I knew guys that had been Marines in the Pacific. Now, they were my friends' fathers, Okay. And if you could get any of them to talk about it, which was tough because they didn't want to talk about it. All right. Those guys went through the genuine crucible of hell. All right. Things that you cannot imagine unless you've ever served in a combat area. All right. It was just, and these guys, I knew a couple of these guys, and this is I'm not exaggerating. They had nightmares about that war until they died.
Yeah.
They had nightmares about it. That's how horrible it was. Beyond belief. Horrible beyond belief. So, Harry Truman, when he was told about the A-bomb, which he didn't know about before FDR died, he had no idea. There was even then among the military and the scientific establishment, oh, this is too horrible to use. We can't use this. We don't know what it's going to do. And Truman said, well, if we invade Japan, how do I tell the mothers of this country that their son died because I wouldn't use something that might have stopped the war? Screw you, we're going to use it.
Exactly. And by the way, they just mentioned two things that are important. One, MacArthur warned about China and Patton warned about Russia. And Eisenhower and Truman didn't want to listen to him because he was warning of what was coming. And both of them did. MacArthur, and I think they both outlived their usefulness because modern military began at the end of World War II. And that is where they let go of the idea that in order to defeat an enemy, you sometimes have to do worse than your enemy. Tecumseh Sherman. You know, he said that. He said, you have to be willing to do worse than your enemy. And you have to horrify them so much that they surrender. And nobody's willing to do that since the end of World War II. Not one leader.
For what it's worth, I think that George Patton was assassinated.
Oh, Jesus, yes.
Yeah. I think the Soviet Union, the NKVD, assassinated him because they saw him as a real, genuine threat
because
to
he
their
was calling them the enemy. He called them the enemy, and they didn't like that. And yeah, I don't doubt for a second he was assassinated. The way he died was so weird, but I got to tell you, I'm really happy. Yeah. What about him?
MacArthur told Truman up front, you know, the Chinese are coming in. We got to settle their hash right now. And if that means deploying an atomic bomb, so be it. Political expediency. Truman got rid of them.
Yep, that's the thing I'm talking about. Is those two men warned what was coming, and it really did happen. They warned of it because it's not the first time. We've seen this before, all the way back with I just forgot his name. Another general, Army Air Force general, who warned of Pearl Harbor.
LeMay.
What was his name?
Curtis LeMay.
That's it. LeMay warned. Wait, no. He had a trial. It wasn't LeMay.
Oh, Billy Mitchell.
Billy Mitchell warned that Pearl Harbor was going to happen, that the Japanese would bomb us there, and they even had a trial with him because of some of the shit that he was saying and doing.
It's court-martialed, yes.
He was court-martialed.
Wow.
And they made a movie with Gary Cooper, the court-martial of Billy Mitchell. If you've never seen that film, go watch that film. That is a great film. He predicted Pearl Harbor years before it happened, that's what they were going to do. And these officers that foresaw these threats were quashed and beat down by the military and our leadership, including our presidents.
Well, look at our current military establishment. Okay,
right now it is.
You know, now when I was in the Army, I was in a very elite military unit. I was involved in intelligence operations, okay, in Vietnam. We did all kinds of wonky shit, And I saw other elite military groups around us, like MAC-VSOG, the Marine Corps, had their Force Recon people. They were some, and this is probably going to bother some of the civilians out in the audience, but they were some fine killers. And when you're out in the bush and you're fighting an insidious enemy, you better be willing to do what needs to be done. Today, I'm talking about 2022, my attitude is God help us if something breaks, because we have been so neutered by these woke military ass-sucking leadership. Like, for God's sake, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Milley, that's a man. I hesitate to say it. Fuck it, I'm going to say it. I wouldn't piss on that guy if he caught on fire. Okay, that's my level of
Oh, come on, you'd be Al Capone and piss on his ashes.
Well, okay, maybe, but no, they want a woke military. Hey, you know what? And I learned this from the feet of my old man, my grandfather, who was in World War I, and then came back for World War II. My old man, who was in World War II and then came back, was called back for Korea. There's only one thing you do. You break things, you kill people, and the more things you break and the more people you kill, the sooner the war is over.
Yeah.
Now, that's a hard truth, and I'm sure there are many that don't want to hear that, but that is the way of the world.
It's the cold reality of things, and they want to have this utopia that follows into some really weird, unrealistic narrative.
Boy, we sure as hell got far from the moon, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, you and I are triggered politically. I know that, but I do want to point out that the CIA and the Air Force are also closely involved with NASA. NASA is almost like another branch of the Air Force. They're so.
Well, if it wasn't for the Air Force and the DoD, NASA wouldn't be here today.
Exactly. And so when you find out NASA has colluded with them in covering up stuff about alien life, there's no big fucking surprise. It's like, duh, that's part of their thing. I never expect NASA to ever be the one to go, oh, by the way, there are aliens. They're never going to do it. They'll never be that agency. It's always going to be somebody else, usually civilian, that's going to dig into these things and go, you've known about this for fucking ever, and won't talk about it because of national security. And their fear really was as simple as losing control of the citizenry by announcing that there's a force out there stronger than us. We can't defend you. Good luck.
Well, the other night, my close buddy, and I've mentioned this before, Dr. John Brandenburg, we've been friends for well over 30 years. We've chased the hootie owl late at night more than once, if you know what I'm talking about. And John is now working for an outfit down in Texas, working on advanced propulsion systems. He called me up the other night. He wrote a new book that's out. As a matter of fact, let me give John's book a plug. It just came out. It's called The War. There we go. The War of the Singularity. It's about AI run amok. All right. Artificial intelligence. And he had sent me a copy of it. He wants me to read it and then do a review for him, which I'm going to happily do. But anyway, John was one of the people when I was the research producer on that documentary special that came out on the Sci-Fi Channel back on July 20th, 2014, the aliens on the moon, the truth revealed. Okay. And that's where I showed that picture, CA. Gerry, you might want to stick that up there, which shows the pipe running through the moon. You want to point it out, Gerry?
I'm seeing it over in that crater on the left side is where I see it. There's a straight line. Again, straight lines and right angles don't exist in nature that we know of so far. But that's what I was taught. And
I discovered that photo in the archives at JPL. Okay, which JPL has some lunar photos. That's a pipe. And who in the hell would have had the technology and the wherewithal to go up to the moon and run a pipe through it? And you can see this if you follow it all the way to the right. You can track it through the ground until it extends over that overhang. And at the end of that pipe, there is a weird kind of Y-shaped extension. Now, granted, this is not the best way to see that. But at any rate, John was one of the people that I had on that program. Now, John was the administrative assistant to the director that ran the Clementine mission. Does everybody know what the Clementine mission is?
I actually don't know what that is. What is that?
Okay, back in '96, NASA, in air quotes, NASA and the DOD went back to the moon with some of the most advanced camera technology then available, 1996, and completely rephotographed the entire moon.
That's where we
Now
found
think
ice
about
on the
it.
moon.
Let that percolate a little bit. They went back to the moon with the equivalent of a KH-11 spy satellite, something that could photograph a pack of cigarettes from 600 miles in orbit on the ground. They went back to the moon and completely rephotographed it. Now, Gerry, what does your military mind tell you they would do that for?
Well, one, spying on people, clearly, and as well as targeting people from space. That's for.
They wanted to know what the hell was happening on the moon since 1972.
Oh, you think? Oh, okay, you're pointing that direction. Okay, yeah, right.
Last time we were on the moon was 1972.
Officially, yep.
Officially. So John, and he told me at the time, he said, they were getting a lot of pictures back, but they had a separate entity within Clementine receiving all those pictures. And he's talking about, he was the freaking administrative assistant to the director. He was not allowed to see them. He was not allowed to see them. So when I got him on that show, and he was talking about, his standpoint as a physicist, a rocket scientist, a no kidding, honest to God, fully fledged rocket scientist. He talked about his ideas that, yeah, there was a presence on the moon. He immediately after that show aired, got several photographs. He had worked within DOD in the past. And I said, well, what'd they have to say? He said, they chewed my ass out. And I said, why? Because I went on and I talked about the moon. They said, John, you can't talk about the moon. So I said, okay, if you want to talk about Mars, John, talk about Mars. Now, John is a recognized Mars authority. Now, why would there be a difference between Mars and the moon? Well, Mars is still way out there. Way out there. We ain't going to get there anytime soon. But the moon is a different story. If we wanted to get there, we could get back up there if we were willing to go balls to the wall. Probably within a year or two, we could get back to the moon if we wanted to go there.
Right.
Don't talk about the moon, John. Don't talk about the moon.
Don't talk about the moon. Everybody knows there's an abundance of helium-3 on the moon.
Yes,
which
there
is the key interest of the United States and China with the moon, is getting access and control over that helium-3. We've been planning, we've scrubbed the mission multiple times now. It's the first rocket going to the moon. It's going to be dropping supplies. I'm assuming building supplies for building a habitat. And
it's going to be interesting to see if we are allowed to go there, Gerry. And I do not say that, okay, with a jest in mind, because from the first landing on the moon, I have been hearing stories since 1989, 1990, that we were told to get our butts off the moon by whoever is up there. And Ingo
you know, one of the astronauts said they were being watched. Which one was that?
That was Neil Armstrong.
Neil, that was it. Because he said he saw something on the horizon that came up and then went down. That he felt they were being observed.
Supposedly, they observed in the Apollo 11 landing spot a disk landed on a crater wall with aliens observing them from the time they stepped off their lander, the whole time they were there until liftoff to come back, they were under observation. That has been the rumor from practically day one. Now, was I there? Obviously, no. I was like everybody else watching this on a very piss-poor black and white TV. But that's what the word was from, and it was ham radio operators that picked up that transmission because they had gone to the medical channel to send that back. Supposedly it went like this: "My God, sir, those babies are huge and they're watching us." That's allegedly what the ham radio operator community heard.
Yeah, exactly. Now, by the way, Soul Assassin, good morning. And I've been saying good morning to everybody in the chat because we've had people popping in. The question you're asking is what would happen with helium-3 and control? Who's going to? That is World War III. We are currently in economic warfare with China and Russia. Everybody, like a buddy of mine's like, "Oh, we're going to go to ground war," and I said, "No, because this is economic warfare. It's different. People
God help us with the administration we have now."
Well, it's not, things aren't being handled correctly right now. It's causing all kinds of problems. But the fact is that is the current warfare we're in, is economic warfare. You won't see bloodshed on any high level. It'll be on low level. People are dying right now. You're not aware of it.
Look at this. That's my coffee pot.
Oh, you're almost empty.
But I got another one on the counter.
All right, good. But I want to tell you, the movie that you asked about, Monkey Jeebus, that was the same director that did Outland and a couple other films. He did 2010, An Odyssey 2, the year we made contact. I can't think of his name right now or the film, but that was one of his first films. And it's about the Mars landing being faked. And it was all about the moon, really is what it was about. But it was all based on that theory that there was a studio that was set up. If they died on the moon, the astronauts died, that NASA and the U.S. government had set up a stage to fake the moon landing if they were killed. But I don't know. I don't believe that was true. I don't believe any of that was true. Because the biggest complaint is surviving the Van Allen belt. And I'm like, look, you would get more radiation from an X-ray at that time than you would from the Van Allen belt, because all you need is plastic and aluminum to block that radiation. And they had what 16th of an inch of aluminum and another 16th inch of that, I forget what plastic they used in the ship.
And they're on their way to the moon, for God's sake. They're going,
they're not lingering and hanging out in that belt.
Thousands of miles an hour, they blow right through it.
And it's exactly what they did. It's like idiots that start trying to use science as an explanation why we never landed on the moon don't understand rocketry, telemetry, or fucking propulsion. And it's amazing. They don't understand physics.
Stanley Kubrick shot the moon landing.
Oh my God. He so denied that he said it was really dumb. But then he made fun of it in Shining because there are so many references to the Apollo mission. That was him making fun of those conspiracy theorists.
I thought he just insisted on realism and actually filming on location.
Because you know who else would have had to have been involved with that was a gentleman that we just lost this year is the guy who did the effects for Blade Runner. He did the effects with Kubrick for 2001: A Space Odyssey. And Kubrick wouldn't have been able to do it on his own. And absolute bullshit. They could not shoot what was shot. There was no way. Hey, pajamas. I see your pajamas.
That's right.
I love it, man. Fucking Don Ecker.
You don't think I'm going to get dressed up to come on this, do you?
Fuck no. You're a fucking honey badger. You don't give a shit. Keith, how's the gutter going over there?
Well, they've stopped the hammering. So every time I have to turn off my mic is when they're really got it going on. So
yes, Glenn, it's correct. Doug Trumbull. Probably one of the best visual effects artists in the history of cinema right there.
Yep.
But anyway, it's just bullshit. We never faked the moon landing. I like that movie. I forget the name of it.
Capricorn 1.
Capricorn 1.
Directed by Peter Hyams.
Peter Hyams is the worst science fiction director in the history of science fiction. But I love him. Shotguns on a planet, or a planetoid that's got 1/6 Earth's gravity. Yeah, that'll happen. With plastic all around you inside of a habitat, you're going to fire shotguns.
Yeah, he was the director of Time Cop, 2010, The Relic, and one of my favorite Sean Connery movies, The Presidio.
Yes, which I love that fucking movie. I'm going to kick your ass, and I'm just going to use my thumb. Not my good thumb, just my weaker thumb. Fucking great fucking movie. But
also one of my other favorite movies, Running Scared.
Jesus Christ, that's the best film he ever made.
And The Star Chamber.
I didn't like that.
Star Chamber's good.
I did not like that movie. Not a fan of it. My problem with Prophecy is he walks up to a fucking stainless steel door and fires a .357 Magnum straight into it, standing in front of the door, firing into the door. And I'm like, he just died in real life. He just killed himself. Because Peter Hyams doesn't understand physics at all.
Nope.
Like in Outland, like he's going to draw blood from a guy's arteries in his neck after the guy's been dead for almost a day. It's like lividity. I knew about this in junior high school. I understand blood pooling. Peter Hyams. God bless you, Peter Hyams, you dumb motherfucker.
Time Cop.
Hey, another great fun show, but
Sudden death.
He really is just dumb. Hey, you know what? That's right. O.J. Simpson killed nobody on the set of Capricorn 1. It's true. He murdered nobody. It wasn't until he was in the movie Eat, Pray, Love, and he killed a waiter and his wife. Ba-dum-bum.
You know, speaking of China, I got to tell you, I bought this laptop I'm using. It's a refurbished laptop, and I can't complain. It works fine. I got a hell of a deal on it. So I wanted to trick it out. Now, this is my little microphone that I use. I've got a Blue Yeti for my desktop that I used for my show. But this is a great little microphone. I got well, you can't see it. I'm holding it up here. I got a USB, what the hell do you call them? With multiple, you can plug in your USB stuff.
A hub.
Yeah. Hub.
Yeah. I got my camera. I got my headphones. I looked at all that shit, and every last bit of it is made in China.
Yep.
It freaked me out.
Well, the thing is,
what happened to American manufacturing, dude?
It's
my damn pajamas were made in Shanghai.
The quality of American stuff is always better, but it's more expensive. And so department stores, a lot of the warehouse department stores that do electronics purchase a lot of Chinese, Taiwan-made products because they're cheaper made, so they turn a better profit in the sale. But U.S. Manufacturers are always better. The quality is always better.
Love them or hate them. One thing about Trump, you gotta give the guy credit for. He was trying to bring manufacturing back to the USA.
Yeah, and it needs to be here. We need manufacturing in the U.S. We need to stop buying so much shit from overseas because that will start breaking the inflation.
Even aspirin, for Christ's sake, coming in from overseas. Aspirin.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to look see where mine's from. Arkansas. My Advil is made in Arkansas. Whew.
That's almost as bad as China.
China or China? What did you say, John?
It's almost as bad as China.
China, what is the ibuprofen or Arkansas?
Yeah, Arkansas.
Arkansas. Oh my God. Fuck you, John. Fuck you so much for making fun of Arkansas, you son of a bitch. Look, it's been a great show. Don, God, you're so fucking awesome. You have no idea. You're a rock star with our group. You really are. Is there anything else you want to go over about some of the shit you've learned and discovered on your research about the moon and intelligence being there outside of our?
Well, I started to mention Ingo Swann. Now that was some time ago. For those who don't know who Ingo Swann was, he was the man that developed the protocols for the Stargate program, the remote viewing program that the DOD and the CIA used for in excess of 20 years. Now, just that, if you know anything, you should know that they wouldn't finance, and it was over $1 million a year, nothing that they weren't getting a benefit from. In 2 decades, well, they just would not have done it. Now, I became buddies with Ingo. Ingo wrote a book, and I've got it here. One of the freakiest books you're likely to ever read, that basically tells his story. Here, Gary, zoom in on that a minute.
Yeah, let me zoom in. Hold on, let me find yours. Boom.
Penetration by Ingo Swann. Now
that book came out before we had Dirty Minds, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. Ingo was a track star, a mega star, at SRI, Stanford Research Institute,
Yep.
back in the very early 70s. And what were they doing? They were doing psychic research.
Remote viewing, which is one thing I wanted to bring up, is this is where Uri Geller did damage to this kind of research. His hokey fucking fake shit hurt the actual investigations into the research of remote viewing and anything that would be identified as psychic. And that's why I hate Uri Geller so much.
Well, Swan is regarded as one of the most gifted psychics on the planet ever. Okay? And there were two guys there at SRI that were megastars, Ingo and a guy by the name of Pat Price. Now, Pat Price died, according to who you talk to, under mysterious circumstances. And after he died, evidence came out that he was a double agent. What do I mean by a double agent? Well, he had been a secret Scientology member. And back in those days, if you were paying attention, I was a cop then, and I had heard a lot of stuff. This is after, of course, after Vietnam. I had heard a lot of stuff about Scientology. They were feuding with the federal government, the FBI and others. And there were a number of people across the United States, news reporters, that were investigating Scientology and their very, very questionable tactics. As a matter of fact, a couple of news reporters, at least one anyway, that I'm absolutely sure of, one day went down to his mailbox to get his mail. He opened it up, and there was a 5-foot desert rattlesnake in there, hoping that he would get bitten when he reached in to get his mail. That's the kind of shit that was being pulled. Well, the FBI, or it might have been the tax people, raided Scientology offices, discovered all this secret SRI research that Price had been feeding Scientology about what they were doing at Stanford Research with this psychic warfare stuff. Now, back in those days, there was a fear, just like in the late 50s, if you know anything about your military history, you'll know that there was a great fear in 58, 59, 60 of a so-called missile gap after the Russians got Sputnik into orbit. We still had rockets blowing up on the pads. Well, by the 70s, reports were coming out of the USSR of their great advances in psychic research, and there was a fear, especially at CIA, about a psychic gap. Ergo, what was happening at SRI? Now, Swan, and this later came out, it's in his book, he was approached by a deep black government agency, so black he didn't even know who they were. And as a matter of fact, he told me personally that as far as he knew, they could have conceivably, now think about this, and I looked him dead in the eyes because I thought he was screwing with me. He said, "No, I'm serious." And I said, "What?" He said, "They might have even been aliens." Well, what'd they want? They took me to a secret location in blackout. He was hooded. Okay, so he had no idea where he was. They were paying me $1,000 a day for up to 1 week to do some remote viewing for them. And the remote viewing that he did ended up being, and he didn't know this initially, remote viewing of the moon. The far side of the moon, where the alleged extraterrestrial base is. And he claims not only did he see it, but he saw humanoids there. But the part that really blew his mind, and I mean literally, they ended up noticing him watching them.
That's
And
what
it
you
was
meant by
so
literally.
terrifying.
Yeah. Wow.
It was so terrifying to him, okay, that it literally knocked him out of that RV session. He was so scared, it knocked him right out of the remote viewing.
Yeah,
And
I'm
he
getting
told me-
goosebumps right now from this. This is.
He said for the next 3 months.
You got him too. You just gave Keith goosebumps too.
Yeah. Well, it's hey, and by the way, this book, Penetration,
Ingo Swan.
you can get a PDF copy of it for free on the web. You put Ingo Swann, INGOSWANN, and the title, Penetration. It'll take you to a site where you can download the book in PDF, totally free, and you can read it yourself. It'll blow your mind, really blow your
I'm
mind.
getting the link now so I can share it with the chat. Download PDF. I'm going to have to do that because it's still going to commercial sites. Here we go. Researchgate.net, and boom. Here we go. I'm going to share the link here. It's I think I'm on the right set. PDF available. No, this is an article, not a book. Hold on, let me somebody else talk while I do this.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's also available on audible.com.
For free?
Audible version, not for free, but I was kind of surprised that they have an Audible version of it.
Well, it's virtually impossible to get a hardback copy of Penetration. You're going to spend a fortune. Now, I haven't looked for it for a number of years. But
I've got it right here. They have it on Amazon for an outrageous price.
Here you go. It's $4.99 for the ebook over here. I'm getting ready to put the link in. Boom. There
And they have it here on Amazon as a paperback for $122.99. The link is in our chat.
And I just found another copy of it. This one's a free one. There we go. Copy. It is available on pdfdrive.com. And here I'm going to share this one. Free copy. Control V. There we go.
Wow.
Boom. There you go, guys. Jeebus, fuck you. Being the first person to say backdoor today. You son of a bitch. You betrayer.
Oh, you've said the secret word. Oh.
Yes, we need a little drop down like Groucho Marx used to have, the bird, with the secret word. Yes, Don, I remember Groucho Marx's show. What was it called, though? You bet
your life.
Yeah,
bet your life.
Fucking love that, man. And Hex Allen Comics. Anybody who wants to join in the after show, let me know now, and I'll send you an invite. Especially for those.
Hey, my pajamas really come out good on this, don't they?
Yeah.
Monkey G
like
was asked for his invite.
Yes, he will get it. It's going to be in the membership thing because we're going to wrap the show up now. Great episode, man. God, I mean, any episode where I get goosebumps was a good fucking episode.
Thank you.
But when you make the black guy get goosebumps, that means it was a fantastic fucking show.
Very kind, gentlemen. Very kind. Thank you.
Here's the invite for the after show, guys. Feel free to join. Hex Allen, if you want to join, I will also send you an invite here because I don't know if you're a member or not, but you're such a good supporter of this show.
Penny wants to join in too. She wants the link.
I don't have her on Twitter.
Oh.
Anybody got her on Twitter or anywhere? Send her an invite. So,
Let me yell for my lovely wife,
Vicky.
my bride, to see if she can hang on. I'm going to turn off my mic.
No problem.
Hey, Vic.
Oh yeah, he didn't turn off his mic.
Vic.
He didn't turn off his mic. I'm turning it off for him. There we go. You did not turn off your mic.
She might be meditating. What? Say again.
You did not turn off your mic. I muted you because you started yelling. It was funny.
Oh shit! Well, I turned off my mic. It must be this damn camera.
Okay, that's fucking.
It's got one too. Son of a bitch. Here, there. I just unhooked it.
Now you're a big gray nipple. You giant gray nipple.
Okay, there.
I'm going to tell you guys something. My relationship with Don will often end up with just a "go fuck yourself" message from him. That me out of the blue. Send me titty pictures. I fucking love you, Don. You're so amazing. I'm so glad to have you as a friend. But with that, we are going to end the show. Penny, we'll find a way to get it to you. And I want you guys to have a great fucking Wednesday. It's been a great week. I want to thank the panel. I'm not going to do all the thank yous today. You guys know how much I appreciate
Well, let me thank too, Gary. Let me first thank you. Let me thank Keith and John. It's always a pleasure to come up here. And the audience, guys, gals, and other preferred pronouns, if you got one. It's always
they, them.
It's always a lot of fun to come up here on a Wednesday, and I really dig it. If I can share a little of my knowledge that I've gained in all these years, I hope you find it of interest. And just thank you, I guess. Thank you.
Nah, well, we love you, Don, and you really do. You lay it out, man, and I fucking love when you just take over and start talking. I just sit back and listen. But I want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you, Don. And with that, I'm going to play our outro. And any of you who want to join, we're going to try to get you invites so you can sit down and talk with Don after show. With that, get out for lunch.